Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name's Curtis and this is the Curt Locker. Today, we're gonna be looking at the Mutant Metals Ultimate Dip Attachments. Now yes, that was plural, dip attachments. I'll be comparing the Rogue manufactured Ultimate Dip Attachment to the Mutant Metals manufactured Ultimate Dip Attachment. Of course, we're gonna cover what it is, how well it's constructed. We're gonna discuss the price a little bit. I'm gonna show you guys my training notes, and then, whether or not I recommend it for your home gym. So Mutant Metals first developed the Ultimate Dip Attachment a couple years ago. And honestly, it's probably been one of the first absolute premium versions of a dip attachment. Most other companies that offer a dip attachment will typically take 1.5 inch Schedule 80 tubing, and they'll either cut it, bend it, or basically just use that tubing to create their dip attachment. Some other companies will also do standalone units such as Black Widow, which is a higher quality version, but for the most part it's made out of kind of like that 1.5 inch Schedule 80, 1.9 outside diameter. Some do a little bit different material, but it's all kind of that basic tube construction. What Mutant Metals set to do when they first developed the UDA was to create a premium version of the dip attachment that was capable of holding 500 plus pounds and making it so that it is just that extra premium. Really, this is one of those that seems to be born out of demand from the home gym market. So I purchased this one couple years ago now, so this is a little bit one of their older models, and what it is, it's a 1 3/8 inch aggressively knurled handle, and the way that it's designed to be worked is you basically store it either how I store it on my solo stand from Bulletproof Fitness or otherwise, but basically you're able to fold it down and it takes up almost no space in its stored configuration versus its deployed configuration. Now this is set up low. That's purely for the video, so just bear with me. So now these used to be offered with either threaded, like I have here, or a pin-in style construction. But as you can see, you have a high quality removable handle that inserts into a 1 inch hole very nicely, and that's very important because most power racks in the home gym scene, or really in any scene right now, come with that 1 inch hole. And that 1 inch hole is important because this, although it's only mounted on a 2x2 when it's on the Ultimate Dip Attachment, will fit through a 3x3 rack and then be able to thread in. Now, as I mentioned, I purchased my Ultimate Dip Attachment a long time ago. I first saw it on Gray Matter Lifting's Instagram page. I thought it was a super high quality looking item, so I jumped on and purchased one. I then upgraded my nuts a little bit later to their 3D printed nuts, which I covered in a video that you can watch here. But I also added a washer that I just had laying around, so this is just a 1 inch nylon washer. If you buy an Ultimate Dip Attachment from Mutant Metals, it does come with that now, but at the time that I purchased, it didn't. On the assembly itself, there are 3 different holes that you can pick from to mount this in. I like to keep mine in the middle hole. However, if you were to measure out from the edge, it goes from, on the inside hole, 11.5 inches side to side to 21.5 if you were to measure it at the very tips of the handles. If you use the middle setting, which is I really think where most athletes are going to be, it's going to be 15 inches where the handles meet to 25. And if you're one of the big boys, it's going to be 19 inches at the outside or 28. And honestly, that's pretty wide. For me, I like it in that middle setting, and I like to use it right where that knurl point is, which is right at about like 23 inches from side to side. It also installs very easily. Basically, you just take it, insert it in the hole, and flip it down. As I mentioned, it can be stored in 2 different configurations. One is upwards with a pin inserted here on an offset rack. If you have a whole inline rack, so like my surplus strength arc, or if you're on like a Sorinex rack, you're not gonna be able to pin that in right here. And what I found is in those inline racks, it will come out a little bit, but you can pin it from the side so that it rests on the piece of metal here on the bracket. If you don't wanna store it vertically, you can also store it upside down. And as you can see, it's really easy to mount on there. Even me demonstrating on video, it just swings down nicely. And a lot of the detail here is really well thought out, especially when you look at the actual bracket and you can see that it comes with UHMW right there, so that where it contacts your rack, it's not metal on metal, therefore reducing any damage that it may cause when it's in the storage configuration. Now, one thing I don't like about the design is that when it's stored, in the intended storage configuration, it can get pushed to the side. Now, I have small kids that come in at my gym, and I guarantee you when they come out and they see this thing hanging there, that is a target-rich environment. And so what I don't like is that it can basically fall out the side of your rack. There's nothing to kind of positively hold it in place. And that is why I prefer to store mine in the vertical orientation, because the really cool part here is when you put that pin in, it rests on there, but you can push this side to side, and there's no way that it's going to come out because the bracket is actually holding it in on the actual storage pin. So you might get it a little bit loose, but it's not gonna fall down on my kids. And for me, safety is a huge part of the gym area, and that includes when I'm training or when I'm not training. So that is the Mutant Metals version, and that is a lot of words. Now, I'm not gonna cover so much on the Rogue version. I mainly wanna cover the differences. Now, I opted to get the welded end caps and the threaded, and that brought the price up to like $400. And that's just because I like the look of welded end caps. Now, if you purchase it with the open ends and no custom colors, and there are stock colors that are included other than black, it's gonna run you $365. The main design differences between the Mutant Metal version and the Rogue version is going to be that in the Mutant Metals version, he doesn't have like the tube laser that Rogue Fitness has. So you can see where these 2x2 arms that angle out, that hold the handle so that you have that nice angle configuration that is really desired for dips, that they're basically fully cut, and he kind of miters that cut with some sort of cutting apparatus. I'm guessing like a high def plasma or something like that, maybe a water jet. And then he welds them all back together. So going all the way around the seam, you have a weld going all the way around. Additionally, the handle bracket assembly, like where it actually swings down and goes in, it is very flush and very low profile on the original Mutant Metals version. And again, this is rated at 550 pounds. So this is plenty of weight capacity for all of you. What I'll say is that the Rogue version is a little bit stiffer, but if you didn't tell me it was stiffer, I probably wouldn't pick up on it. The Rogue version, because they do have access to like those tube lasers and those really expensive pieces of equipment because of how big they are, they have cut basically these three sides of this 2x2 armature, and then they've just bent it down, and then they have their robotic welder come in here and weld it. So what you end up with is a very consistent weld, where maybe the Mutant Metals is a little bit less consistent. Not to say at all that it's not a very functional and attractive weld. I'm just saying that robots are wildly consistent, and it's very difficult to compete with robots in human welding. It also has a slightly wider bracket. It's wider by about 1 inch because it has an additional gusset put down here, and that gusset is what makes the Rogue version feel just that little bit stiffer. Now again, it's the same type of storage. You can either do it upside down, or like I prefer to do, to basically just flip it up. And you have essentially the exact same handle configuration. The holes are in the same place. There are some nicer things here. So the UHMW is present on the Mutant Metals version, but on the Rogue version, because again, they have that large infrastructure that's already established for doing a lot of UHMW, they're able to get a little bit of a nicer quality UHMW in here on the Rogue version, and it looks really good. One thing about the Rogue version I don't like is that it has that plastic end cap in there, and the reason that I don't like those plastic end caps is because they inevitably break. And when they break, they pop out, and then you're left with a situation where you have like one that's in, one that's not. I don't like the way it looks when it's just open. It doesn't detract from the actual operation of the unit at all. It's just one of those aesthetic things that as a home gym owner, you really care about your space, and it's something that I pick up on. The one final difference that there is between the Rogue version and the Mutant Metals version has to do with the pin that goes through the actual upright. So these pins come in 5/8 and 1 inch variety from both Rogue and Mutant Metals, which means that if you have a Rogue Monster or a Rogue Monster Lite, or maybe you're on a Crandall Fitness 6-post, or you're on a Rep PR 4000 or a 5000, all of those racks are compatible with this. It's also compatible with 2x3 or 3x3 if you order from Mutant Metals. The one other area that it makes a difference with this pin is that on the UDA from Mutant Metals, it is kind of a stainless or bare steel pin that's going through the upright, which means that it won't ever really scratch or the paint won't flake off. Again, that's not one of those things that matters all that much. It doesn't detract from the functionality. For instance, on the Mutant Metals version, the weld for the pin when it goes onto the bracket is on the inside versus on the Rogue where it's on the outside. It's just small manufacturing differences between the Rogue version and the Mutant Metals version, but functionally they're the exact same thing. So you might be asking yourself, why would you purchase a Mutant Metals version versus buying a Rogue version? And it's really simple. It has 100% to do with lead times. So if you're okay with a more passive knurl on the handle, which is the same diameter, but it's more of a passive knurl, and you don't care that it only is available in black, and you just want to get the best dip attachment that stores in the smallest space into your gym, then the Rogue version of the Mutant Metals UDA might be for you. But if you're willing to wait the lead time and you want that more aggressive, deeper, sharper knurl with kind of that deeper grooved knurl break. Now in my unboxing video, something that I noticed was that the UDA that I purchased from Mutant Metals way long ago is actually vertical when it's flipped down, which means that when you get on it and you load it, so my body weight plus whatever weight I'm doing dips with, it tends to go below parallel. Now I reached out to Mutant Metals and they said that they actually updated their unit so that it has the same as the Rogue, but basically it kind of anticipates that load a little bit. So it's actually at a slight upward angle before you load it, which means that when you get on and load it, it comes down to level or very close to level. With the size of this, I feel like most people's big concern is going to be that when you compare it to units like the Velocidor, which is also available from Rogue Fitness, people are gonna say that this can't hold as much as the Velocidor. And I guess that that's probably correct, but you really got to consider the load bearing difference there. So the Velocidor is pretty dang big. Matt Pendergraph posted a picture to his Instagram which really showed just how big that Velocidor is. So if angling handles and weird configurations isn't important to you and you want a handle that can go onto a power rack so you can do all sorts of other movements as well as doing dips, then I would say that the Mutant Metals UDA is going to be more than capable of taking on any load that you guys can throw at it. Can the Velocidor hold more? I mean, probably, but how much weight are we talking about there? So I would say that the argument that the Velocidor can hold more is true, but it doesn't hold water as far as being a good argument to not get the Mutant Metals UDA. So my use for these has been crazy awesome. Like I really have no negative things to say other than when it's stored upside down, you can bump it out. I've used this in ways that it wasn't even intended to be used, such as when I used it to do Viking presses using my lever arms. I've also used these bars for all sorts of things. I've simulated it as basically a handheld stall bars, pull-up bars. I'll take these and I'll put them up on the side of my rack and my kids will play on them, whether they're using them as a handhold or my older daughter is doing strict pull-ups on them. They're just something that is a lot of fun to have. Now I am blessed that I have 2 UDAs, which means I have 4 handles, which makes it all the more fun. But I would also say that this is a quality piece of equipment that has a ton of versatility for anyone's home gym space, even if you only just have one of them. So now to talk about the difference that means the most to home gym owners, and that's going to be price and lead time. So again, $365 with the open end caps, or rather the plastic end caps, and from Mutant Metals, that is a great deal. However, you're gonna be waiting 14 weeks. If you're like some people, and I'm not knocking these at all, but if you want it and you want it now, then I would recommend that you purchase the Rogue version, which is $325 and is available in about 2 weeks. I think that Rogue did a great job on the powder coat. I think the black handles look good. The knurl is nice. I would compare the knurl to that of an Ohio bar, not an Ohio power bar, but like the CrossFit Ohio bar. It's nice, it's there, it's good. Now it did get brought up at one point, why have knurling on a dip bar? And on a dip bar, it might not be all that important, but when you're using it as maybe an anchor point for doing lateral raises, or you're using it to do pull-ups, or you're using it for any number of other movements, having that knurl is a really nice touch. I'll also say that after you do dips on a knurled bar, going back to one of those Schedule 80 pipes is just a little bit less exciting. So does this have a place in your home gym? I would say absolutely yes. This is the 4th dip attachment that I've owned for my 1-inch hardware rack, and these are the last ones that I will be keeping. I'm not sure which one I like more, if I'm being honest, because I got this one in black. So, I mean, they're both black. I like these handles better, but I'm gonna be honest, I kinda like the Rogue frame a little bit better as well. But that's been it for this video. I think it is an A+ piece of equipment. Tell me what you guys think in the comments down below. I appreciate each and every single one of you that watch these videos every week. And remember, when it comes to outfitting your gym and your training, you should always keep it better, awesome, and of course, badass. I'll catch you next time.